Good morning. Welcome to yet another Terrific Tuesday. Let's start our morning with the peak state programming, visualizing our dreams, knowing we're a winner, and then go on for our studies. So let's start our beautiful morning. There we go. Ritesh sir, can we have the music, please? Thank you. Well, let's start. Maybe the second bit of music can do the second. Okay, let's start. Yes. I'm a winner. The second leg in the front, and let's do it once more. Yes. I'm a winner in my game of life, and so it is. How wonderful. All right. If you're anyone, will somebody want to read or Karishma? If yes, please raise your hands so we can begin our morning. Thank you. Today in Ikigai, we're going to touch a very beautiful subject. It's going to be about meditating. Oh, as always, I forget. Tuesdays, I forget. Yes, sir. Let's start the artist way. So, how were you all last week? How was it? Did you do well? Were you managing well? I hope you've done the exercises. If not, please. Yes, Neetu, thank you. So, week 8, we are on week 8, recovering a sense of strength. This week tackles another major creative block, time. You will explore the ways in which you have used your perception of time to preclude taking creative risks. You will identify immediate and practical changes you can make in your current life. You will excavate the early conditioning that may have encouraged you to settle for far less than you desire creatively. So we are all now going to realize a lot of stuff about time, how we have been kind of dilly-dallying, how we're kind of not yet there, and how a little few changes and we can be back on track. So let's understand this beautiful part of recovering our sense of self, our strength with this time management. Survival is the topic for today and right now, and let's go for it. Yes, Meetu, please.
Survival. One of the most difficult tasks an artist must face is a primal one, artistic survival. All artists must learn the art of surviving loss, loss of hope, loss of face, loss of money, loss of self belief. In addition to our many gains, we inevitably suffer these losses in an artistic career. They are the hazards of the road and, in many ways, its signposts. Artistic losses can be turned into artistic gains and strengths, but not in the isolation of the beleaguered artist's brain. As mental health experts are quick to point out, in order to move through loss and beyond it, we must acknowledge it and share it. Because artistic losses are seldom openly acknowledged or mourned. They become artistic scar tissue that blocks artistic growth. Deemed too painful, too silly, too humiliating to share, and so to heal. They become instead secret losses. If
Yes. So,
artists
1 second. So, are we all clear about what we've read? That at times for surviving, if we have loss of hope, we don't have hope. If we have loss of face, loss of money, these are all negative features which are going to suck us into suffering. We talked about this yesterday in the other books also. And then it's not about artistic career as in something to do with art career, but any career of ours will go absolutely off trail when we are not realizing these signs. So, and we have to get into our strength building. We have to start gaining. And that can only happen when we are going to be working mentally back on track. And this chapter will give us the entire guidance of how to acknowledge, how to get out of it, and how to accept and move on. Yes, please.
If artistic creations are our brain children, artistic losses are our miscarriages. Women often suffer terribly and privately from losing a child who doesn't come to term. And as artists, we suffer terrible losses when the book doesn't sell, the film doesn't get picked up, the juried show doesn't take our paintings, the best post shatters, the poems are not accepted, the ankle injury sidelines us for an entire dance season. We must remember that our artist is a child and that what we can handle intellectually far outstrips what we can handle emotionally. We must be alert to flag and mourn our losses. The disappointing reception of a good piece of work, the inability to move across into a different medium or type of role due to other people's expectations of us are artistic losses that must be mourned. It does no good to say, oh, it happens to everybody, or who was I kidding anyway? The unmourned disappointment becomes the barrier that separates us from future dreams. Not being cast in the role that's yours, not being asked to join the company, having the show cancelled or the play unreviewed, these are all losses. Perhaps the most damaging form of artistic loss has to do with criticism. The artist within, like the child within, is seldom hurt by truth. I will say again that much true criticism liberates the artist it is aimed at. We are childlike, not childish. Aha is often the accompanying inner sound when a well placed, accurate critical arrow makes its mark. The artist thinks, yes, I can see that. That's right. I can change that. The criticism that damages an artist is the criticism, well intentioned or ill, that contains no saving kernel of truth, yet has a certain damning plausibility or an unassailable blanket judgment that cannot be rationally refuted. Teachers, editors, mentors are often authority figures or parent figures for a young artist. There is a sacred trust inherent in the bond between teacher and student. This trust, when violated, has the impact of a parental violation. What we are talking about here is emotional incest. A trusting student hears from an unscrupulous teacher that good work is bad or lacks promise, or that he, the guru teacher, senses a limit to the student's real talent, or was mistaken in seeing talent, or doubts that there is talent. Personal in nature, nebulous as to specifics, this criticism is like covert sexual harassment, a sullying yet hard to quantify experience. The student emerges shamed, feeling like a bad artist or worse, a fool to try.
So it's very clear that all of us, we have had disappointing receptions probably of our good of pieces of work. We probably thought we've done very well, but we have been told by others it's not good enough. We've been put off track. We have had sometimes artistic damaging losses also because criticism hasn't been taken well by us. And the artist within us, the child, just like the child within us, is sometimes hurt by the truth because we think we've given 100% and done a fabulous job. But some mentor, some teacher, some elder, or somebody will say, oh, it's not good enough. It's not what you should have done. And sometimes we are damaged by the criticism, though we're supposed to take it better. But whether we know and we don't know, we're doing that. So now what's happening is that we are being told this is something which has to be accepted. If we accept it, it's going to be nice. Even yesterday, we spoke about this that if we just put a layer on that, it's somewhere deep down there buried. But if you're just going to keep unfolding it, understanding it, why I'm hurt, what is the reason, we'll be able to have some logic. Eric Fromm says, I shall become a master in this art only after a great deal of practice. So we should always remember this saying, practice makes a man perfect, and not take negativity in a bad form because people who are actually judging our work are there for making us better. This is especially for a teacher or a mentor, right? Fyodor Dostoevsky says, taking a new step, uttering a new word is what people fear most. Because people are used to the monotony, people are used to patterns. Something new and extraordinary becomes absolutely detrimental to somebody's growth. So then people have had blockages because they're like, if we do it, it'll not be accepted. So let me not do it. Knowingly, unknowingly, this is already happening inside. Now let's look at the ivory power.
It has been my perilous privilege over the past decade to undertake teaching forays into the grooves of academia. It is my experience as a visiting artist that many academics are themselves artistic beings who are deeply frustrated by their inability to create. Skilled in intellectual discourse, distanced by that intellectual skill from their own creative urgings, they often find the creativity of their charges deeply disturbing. Devoted as they are to the scholarly appreciation of art, most academics find the beast intimidating when viewed firsthand. Creative writing programs tend to be regarded with justified suspicion. Those people aren't studying creativity, they're actually practicing it. Who knows where this could lead? I'm thinking particularly of a film department chair of my acquaintance, a gifted filmmaker who, for many years, had been unable or unwilling to expose himself to the rigors and disappointments of creating. Channeling his ferocious creative urges into the lives of his students, he alternately over controlled and undercut their best endeavors, seeking to vicariously fulfill or justify his own position on the sidelines. As much as I wanted to dislike this man, and I certainly disliked his behaviors, I found myself unable to regard him without compassion. His own thwarted creativity so luminous in his early films, had darkened to shadow first his own life and then the lives of his students. In the truest sense, he was a creative monster. It took more years and more teaching for me to realize that academia harbors a far more subtle and deadly foe to the creative spirit. Outright hostility, after all, can be encountered. Far more dangerous, far more soul chilling is the subtle discounting that may numb student creativity in the academic groove. I am thinking now of my time at a distinguished research university where my teaching colleagues published widely and well on film topics of the most esoteric and exotic stripe. Highly regarded among their intellectual peers, deeply immersed in their own academic careers, these colleagues offered scant mirroring to the creative students who passed through their tutelage. They neglected to supply that most rudimentary nutrient, encouragement. Creativity cannot be comfortably quantified in intellectual terms, but its very nature, creativity eschews such containment. In a university where the intellectual life is built upon the art of criticizing, on deconstructing a
One second.
creative.
Mitu sir is not changing the page. So I've been waiting for him. Yes, please.
I'll
Yes,
read the
now it's okay.
paragraph again. Creativity cannot be comfortably quantified in intellectual terms. By its very nature, creativity eschews such containment. In a university where the intellectual life is built upon the art of criticizing, on deconstructing a creative work, the art of creation itself, the art of construction meets with scanty support, understanding, or approval. To be blunt, most academics know how to take something apart, but not how to assemble it. Student work, when scrutinized, was seldom appreciated, far from it. Whatever its genuine accomplishments, it was viewed solely in terms of its shortfalls. Time and again, I saw promising work met with a volley of should have done's, could have done's, and might have done's, instead of being worked with as it was. It is not my argument that the world of academia be turned into an exalted artist studio. It is, however, my point that artists attempting to exist, grow, even flourish within that milieu recognize their entire thrust of intellectualism runs counter to the creative impulse. For an artist to become overly cerebral is to become crippled. This is not to say that artists lack rigor, rather, that artist rigor is grounded differently than intellectual life usually admits. Artists and intellectuals are not the same animal. As a younger artist, this was very confusing to me. I myself have considerable critical gifts and have, in fact, won national awards for practicing them. It was to my own ruin that I discovered that these same skills were misapplied when focused on embryonic artist endeavors, mine or others. Younger artists are seedlings. Their early work resembles thicket and underbrush, even weeds. The halls of academia, with their preference for lofty intellectual theorems, do little to support the life of the forest floor. As a teacher, it has been my sad experience that many talented creatives were daunted early and unfairly by their inability to conform to a norm that was not their own. It would be my hope that the academics who read this book and apply it would do so with an altered appreciation for the authenticity of growth for the sake of growth. In other words,
Me
as
too. Is it possible for you to summarize what you've read? Because I,
okay, I'll try my best to summarize. I think here the author is trying to say that in the world of academia, the artists who tend to not, who are very at a very early stage uh, tend to get shadowed by the artists who are probably doing a little well. So they're trying to compare the um, artists who are at the ground in a forest who get overshadowed by the taller trees. So it's disheartening for her to see that artists who are not able to express themselves properly, or who are at a very early stages of their artistic career, or their artistic outburst, get discouraged by get heavily discouraged by the teachers or the peers. Actually, can I do a little sharing here? Because
yeah.
I think we have experienced this as architecture students, and as in our career also, because our teachers are most of the times in academia those who are not practicing architects. So our entire 5 years of journey is only based on criticism on the work that we are doing. So I can totally relate to this whole chapter, wherein I saw a lot of my classmates, my juniors and seniors, not being encouraged by the students, because their ideas, however innovative they were probably never understood by the teachers. So every time it was like, this is wrong, this is wrong, this should have been done, this should have been that. So I think I can relate to it also. It's absolutely right.
So we just told that this happens, but at the grassroots level, we begin something. Somebody is saying something to us. We should not take it sida dil pe. We should try to analyze. We should try to grow, see the criticism in hand, and not get deterred by it. That's the entire journey of this entire thing. Yes, thanks, Mitu.
Without specific tools and sufficient ego strengths, many gifted artists languish for years in the wake of such blows. Shamed at their supposed lack of talent, shamed by their grandiose dreams, the young artists may channel their gifts into commercial endeavors and then forget their dreams of doing more groundbreaking and risky work. They may work as editors instead of writers, film editors instead of film directors, commercial artists instead of fine artists, and get stuck within shouting distance of their dreams. Often, audacity, not authentic talent, confers fame on an artist. The lack of audacity, pinched out by critical abuse or malnourished through neglect, may cripple many artists far superior to those we publicly acclaim. In order to recover our sense of hope and the courage to create, we must acknowledge and mourn the scars that are blocking us. This process may seem both painstaking and petty, but it is a necessary rite of passage. Just as a teenager must gain autonomy from an overbearing parent, so too an artist must gain autonomy from malignant artistic mentors. When Ted finished writing his first novel, he bravely sent it off to a literary agent. He also sent a check for $100 to pay the agent for taking the time and trouble to read it. What came back was a single page of unusable, irresponsible, and vague reaction. This novel is half good and half bad. That's the worst kind. I can tell you how to fix it. I suggest pinching it out. When I met Ted, he had been blocked for 7 years. Like many beginners, he hadn't even known to get another opinion. It was with great difficulty that he handed his novel over to me. As Ted's friend, I was heartbroken for him that this novel had been manhandled. As a professional, I was impressed, so impressed, I found myself with my first student to unblock. Please try to write again. You can do it. I know you can do it. I started in. Ted was willing to risk unblocking. It is now 12 years since Ted began his work with the morning pages. He has written 3 novels and 2 movies. He has an impressive literary agent and a growing reputation.
So let's hold on to this. So please understand that our artist pages, our morning pages are very, very important for us, whether you find them relevant or irrelevant. Unknowingly or knowingly, consciously or subconsciously, you are writing something in it. And whatever that is right now, that you find that gibberish or you find that absolutely misconstrued, it is unblocking you, whether you're realizing or not. That's why we say don't read it again. Just scribble it out. Just release whatever is in your mind. Because you can have blockages of something sometime, somewhere. And when they play in your mind, you have no idea. When they're blocked, you have no idea. So that's why it's a 12-week course. In 12 weeks, you're just supposed to keep writing morning pages and fill even if more. She's talked about 3, you can write 1, you can write 5, you can write how many ever. We all need to unblock ourselves. That's why they say, like, please keep writing. Claudia Black says, surround yourself with people who respect and treat you well. Very important to do that because that is when you'll be motivated more. Otherwise, if you're reading this entire 3 pages, it's all about how people have been overshadowed. You know, how, and that's not been intentional, but that's how been perceived by the youngsters who are just getting into this world. Francis Vickers says, to the rationally minded, the mental processes of the intuitive appear to work backwards. So what's happening? You're relatively rational, right? But now you're going to go backwards because you're being told again and again about something. Diane Marie Child says, trust that still small voice that says, this might work and I'll try it. Now, that is very important for us to realize that our inner voice, our higher self, is always guiding us. छोटी छोटी आवाजें आती है ना, supposed to listen to them and follow them rather than judging them. If your voice is okay, this may work, let me try it. Please try it. Don't think so much. Just try it and keep writing the morning pages. Yes, sir. So, sir, you can turn the page now.
In order to get to where he is now, Ted had to refeel and mourn the wounding he had endured as a young writer. He had to make his peace with the lost years this wounding had cost him. A page at a time, a day at a time, he had to slowly build strength. Like the career of any athlete, an artist's life will have its injuries. These go with the game. The trick is to survive them, to learn how to let yourself heal. Just as a player who ignores a sore muscle may tear it further, an artist who buries his pain over losses will ultimately cripple himself into silence. Give yourself the dignity of admitting your artistic wounds. That is the first step in healing them. No inventory of our artistic injuries would be complete without acknowledging those wounds that are self inflicted. Many times, as artists, we are offered a chance that we bark at, sabotaged by our fear, our low self worth, or simply our other agendas. Grace is offered an art scholarship in another city but doesn't want to leave Jerry, her boyfriend. She turns the scholarship down. Jack is offered a dream job in his field in a faraway city. It's a great job, but he turns it down because of all the friends and family he has where he is. Angela gets terrible reviews in a terrible play and is then offered another lead in a challenging play. She turns it down. These lost chances often haunt us bitterly in later years. We will work more extensively later with our artistic U turns, but for now, just counting them as losses begins the process of healing them.
So very important that we have had lost opportunities or chances and when we were growing up or even probably off late. And it's not important to forget them completely and move on. You have to give yourself the dignity to heal, to understand why you went through that procedure. And when you are ready to heal, only that's when you can take a step and do something very beautiful with your life. Of course, we will be guided for this later very much by Julia Cameron, and we'll wait for that. But right now, Claude Bernard says, man can learn nothing except by going from the known to the unknown. So if you know something about yourself, if you accept something about yourself, only then can you go into an unknown territory. But if you've tried to bury your past where it is without even understanding it, you're far from healing because then you're just inflicting, self-inflicting more wounds and more, troubles and problems to yourself. Now let's talk about gain disguised as loss. So this is very important to understand. This is what we keep saying, that everything happens for a reason. And in every situation, we are always learning something. If we start understanding that, saying that, life will become so much more better. Yes, Neetu, please.
Art is the act of structuring time. Look at it this way: a piece of art says, "Here's how I see it." As my waggish friend, the novelist Eve Pebbitz remarks, "It's all in the frame." This is particularly true when what we are dealing with is an artistic loss. Every loss must always be viewed as a potential gain. It's all in the framing. Every end is a beginning. We know that, but we tend to forget it as we move through grief. Struck by a loss, we focus, understandably, on what we leave behind, the lost dream of the work's successful fruition and its buoyant reception. We need to focus on what lies ahead. This can be tricky. We may not know what lies ahead. And if the present hurts this badly, we tend to view the future as impending pain. Gain disguised as loss is a potent artist's tool. To acquire it, simply, brutally ask, how can this loss serve me? Where does it point my work? The answers will surprise and liberate you. The trick is to metabolize pain as energy. The key to doing that is to know, to trust, and to act as if a silver lining exists if you are only willing to look at the work differently or to walk through a different door, one that you may have barked at. In order to catch the ball, you have to want to catch the ball. The film director John Cassavetes once told a young director. Hearing this, I took it to mean, stop complaining about the lousy curves you get thrown and stretch. Reach for what you really want. I have tried to follow this advice. For years, I played studio roulette. Repeatedly, original scripts were bought and not made. Repeatedly, fine work languished on studio shelves, the victim of revolving studio doors. Go pictures became dead overnight, except in my filmmaker's heart, which was breaking. That's just the way it is, I was told repeatedly. If you want to see your films made, you must first sell yourself as a writer. And then, if one of your scripts is made, if that film is a hit, and if the climate warms up a little, then you might get a shot at directing. I listened to this conventional wisdom for a long time, racking up loss after loss, writing script after script. Finally, after one loss too many, I began to look for the other door, the one I had refused to walk through. I decided to catch the ball. I became an independent filmmaker. I left Hollywood. I went to Chicago, bought a used camera, and using my Miami Vice writing money, shot my own feature, a romantic 40 style comedy. It was in the can for $31,000 and it looked good. Then, incredibly, my sound tapes were stolen. I finished the film anyway, dubbing it in its entirety. Yes, crazy, but so was Cassavetes, my role model. The result won foreign distribution and fine reviews abroad, and I learned a lot. Because I asked how instead of why me, I now have a modest first feature to my credit. It might have happened if I had not taken matters into my own hands, but it might not have either, since it might not have either. Since 1974, I have worked vigorously and exhaustively as a film writer. I have written and sold features, short films, documentaries, docudramas, teleplays, movies of the week, and that bastardized movie, The Miniseries. I have directed one feature and a half dozen short films. Less visibly, I have labored as a script doctor, credited and not for hire and for love. To boot, I have written 100+ film essays, film interviews, think pieces, trend pieces, aesthetic pieces, more, all as I toiled as a writer for such diverse publications as Rolling Stone, The New York Times, The Village Voice, New York, New West, the Los Angeles Times, the Chicago Tribune, and most conspicuously, American Film, where I served as a contributing editor for many years. In short, you might say I have done my dharma to my favored art form. Why all of this diverse, hydra headed productivity? Because I love movies, love making them, and did not want my losses to take me down. I learned, when hit by loss, to ask the right question: what next? Instead of why me? Whenever I'm willing to ask what is necessary next, I have moved ahead. Whenever I have taken no for a final answer, I have stalled and gotten stuck. I have learned that the key to career resiliency is self empowerment and choice. If you look at long and successful creative careers, you will see this principle in action. The distinguished videographer Shirley Clark began her creative career as a dancer. She first became a filmmaker, so there would be some properly made dance films. Distinguishing herself next as a first rate feature director, winning renown in Europe, if not directing jobs in American studios. Clark became the first American director to shoot a feature in Harlem, the first American director to explore the range of the handheld camera, the American director that John Cassavetes, Martin Scorsese, and Paul Schrader all credit as seminal in their own artistic formation. Alas, she was a woman and she lived in difficult times. When her filmmaking revenues dried up, she became one of the first video artists working with Sam Shepard, Joseph Papp, Ornette Coleman. Clark clearly took to heart the idea that it was harder to hit a moving target. Whenever one avenue of her creativity was blocked, she found another.
The first story, what have we heard? This guy never said, why me? Whenever something wrong happens to all of us, it's a very typical question that we say, why me? But in good times, we never say, why me? Instead, this guy asked, how? How can I improvise? What can I do better? What next? And what is necessarily next? So he asked very progressive questions. And then he took the leap of faith. He said, okay, let me become a solo director. Of course, secondhand stuff had to be bought. But then he just scaled it. He nailed it. Why? He says you have to have a resilient career. You have to be empowered. And the choice is always up to you. It's not up to anybody else. People will come, make us, break us. But do we want to be made or do we want to be broken? Depends completely upon us. Even this lady, Shirley Clark, even we're talking about her also. Why is she from a dancing career? She's become a filmmaker. Why? Just because she realized that she needed to grow. Just because she realized that we can do things differently and she worked with the best of people. So never say, why me? Always learn, always have an open, receptive mind that everything is teaching me something good about myself. My new strength is going to be discovered. And if one door closes, I'm going to find the other door. So, very important for all of us to understand this. Yes, let's move on, Mitu. Thanks.
Film annals abound with such stories. Elia Kazan, out of favor as a director, wrote novels. The director John Cassavetes, also a fine actor, used his acting to fund his directing efforts, which were too eclectic for studio backing. If they won't make it as a feature, I'll make it, Cassavetes said, and he did it. Rather than allow himself to be blocked, he looked for the other door. We would not enjoy the wonderful series Fairy Tale Theatre if actress producer Shelley Duvall had stayed home complaining during acting draughts instead of turning her creativity elsewhere. Non illegitimi carborundum, the graffiti in prisoner of war camps, is said to have run. The rough translation, very important for artists, is don't let the bastards get you down. Artists who take this to heart survive and often prevail. The key here is action. Pain that is not used profitably quickly solidifies into a leaden heart, which makes any action difficult. When faced with a loss, immediately take one small action to support your artist. Even if you all are doing is buying a bunch of tulips and a sketchpad, your action says, I acknowledge you and your pain. I promise you a future worth having. Like a small child, our artist needs momming. Ouch, that hurt. Here's a little treat, a lullaby, a promise. I have a director friend who tells me that on his worst nights, when he's about to open a new film and he awaits career catastrophe, sure that he will never work again, in the dark, alone, he cajoles himself to sleep. If I can't shoot 35 mm, I could still shoot 16 mm. If I can't shoot 16 mm, then I can shoot video. If I can't shoot video, I can shoot Super 8.
So let it be here right now. So very important for all of us to see what are we seeing from all the stories. That survival of the fittest is important. That we have to start communicating with ourselves. We have to start taking key actions. We can't keep drudgery. We can't keep pain, eating us up and not taking any actions. If we have a loss, we have to take one more step to support ourselves. And if an artist or anybody in us is hurt, we have to get up and support ourselves. We're looking for outside support. How about our own support? How about surviving ourselves? That is what we've been told again and again and again. Jean Jacques Rousseau says, the world of reality has its limits. Yes, it's limited, absolutely. But the world of imagination is boundless, it's limitless, it's infinite. Imagination can take you right now sitting here into some other planet on some other holiday, and you can be really enjoying it. Why? It's imagination. So please understand, we are being taught to being resilient. We are being taught to continue. We are being taught that if in case we face adversities, we have to get up and move on. And if can't, if the avenues are shorter, we can do the best we can in those short avenues, rather than always looking for something larger than life. If this becomes, I'll do this. If this becomes, I'll do this. No, I'll do my best in this situation right now. And it's nice to give ourselves treats. That's why she makes us go on artist dates. We unnecessarily, unknowingly suffer. So when we treat ourselves, it's like, oh wow, I've treated myself. I feel good. It's your time with yourself. Yes, so now you can turn the page. Thank you. Ritesh, sir? Yeah, thanks. So now we'll talk about age and time, product and processes, how these are also going to help us. With improved age, how we become a little more mature and better. Yes, let's go for it.
Question. Do you know how old I'll be by the time I learn to play the piano? The same age you will be if you don't. Answer. I'm too old for that ranks with. I'm too old for that ranks with. I don't have money for it. As a great block lie we use to prevent further exploration. I'm too old is something we tell ourselves to save ourselves from the emotional cost of the ego deflation involved in being a beginner. I'm too old to go to film school, I told myself at 35. And when I got to film school, I discovered that I was indeed 15 years older than my classmates. I also discovered I had greater creative hunger, more life experience, and a much stronger learning curve. Now that I've taught in a film school myself, I find that very often my best students are those who came to their work late. I'm too old to be an actor. I have heard many students complain, and dramatically, I might add. They are not always pleased when I tell them this is not the case. The splendid actor John Mahoney did not begin acting until he was nearly 40. 10 years into a highly successful career, he is now often booked 3 films in advance and works with some of the finest directors in the world. I'm too old to really be a writer, is another frequent complaint. There is more ego saving nonsense. Raymond Chandler didn't publish until the far side of 40. The superb novel Jules and Jim was written as a first novel by a man in his 70s. I'm too old is an evasive tactic. It is always used to avoid facing fear. Now let's look at the other side. I'll let myself try it when I'm retired. This is an interesting side trip on the same ego saving track. As a culture, we glorify youth and allow our youth the freedom to experiment. And we disparage our old timers but allow them the right to be a little crazy.
So let's understand, age is all a myth. Of course, as a community, as civilization, make enjoy your young days and come back is some things we've been grown up hearing, but it's all in the mind. Age is what matures you and you're able to do something more. No, sometimes going back to the younger times and being a child matures you more. And so on our EO launch, we had Bowman Irani coming for us for the launch. And he inspired us. The theme of our launch was inspired. And he said that he was a waiter. He was between 78 masses and like a huge barrage of women around. And how at 43, he got his first break in Bollywood. And he says, I just want to do it. I was so sure dyslexia was a part of his life. And he said, people said it's not possible. Tum kya hai? What word did he say? I forgot. Duffer. The way he said it was like everyone had kind of brandished him as like half dumb mind, but he wanted to do it. And he finally did it at the age of 43. So many people have done. One of my friends, he's in his late 40s, has now become a marathon runner. He had a nice belly and he was a big some man. All of a sudden he started running, training, and now he's doing marathons. So it's not about the age. It's about how you want to grow. It doesn't matter now. Here we're hearing stuff in 70s, we're hearing stuff in 40s. It doesn't matter. Any time can be a first time for any one of us. We're never too old. Get that very clear in our minds. At least remove that block that, okay, I'm old enough. Now I'm in my 70s, 80s. I can't do this. Everything can be done. Let's read further on this.
Many blog creatives tell themselves they are both too old and too young to allow themselves to pursue their dreams. Old and dotty, they might try it. Young and foolish, they might try it. In either scenario, being crazy is a prerequisite to creative exploration. We do not want to look crazy, and trying something like that, whatever it is, at our age, whatever it is, would look nuts. Yes, maybe. Creativity occurs in the moment, and in the moment, we are timeless. We discover that as we engage in a creative recovery, I felt like a kid. We may say, after a satisfying artist date, kids are not self conscious. And once we are actually in the flow of our creativity, neither are we. How long would it take me to learn to do that? We may ask, standing on the sideline of a longed for activity. Maybe a year to be pretty good, the answer comes back. It depends. As blob creatives, we like to pretend that a year or even several years is a long, long time. Our ego plays this little trick to keep us from getting started. Instead of allowing ourselves a creative journey, we focus on the length of the trip. It's such a long way, we tell ourselves. It may be, but each day is just one more day with some motion in it, and that motion towards a goal is very enjoyable. At the heart of the anorexia of artistic avoidance is the denial of process. We like to focus on having learned a skill or on having made an artwork. This attention to final form ignores the fact that creativity lies not in the done, but in doing. I am writing a screenplay is infinitely more interesting to the soul than I have written a screenplay. Which pleases the ego? I am in an acting class is infinitely more interesting than I took an acting class a few years ago. In a sense, no creative act is ever finished. You can't learn to act because there is always more to learn. Arguably, you cannot even direct a film because you will always be redirecting it, even years later. You will know that, you will know then what you might have done and what you will do next if you keep working. This doesn't mean that the work accomplished is worthless. Far from it. It simply means that doing the work points the way to new and better work to be done. Focused on process, our creative life retains a sense of adventure. Focused on product, the same creative life can feel foolish or barren. We inherit the obsession with product and the idea that art produces finished product from our consumer oriented society. This focus creates a great deal of creative block. We, as working artists, may want to explore a new artistic area, but we don't see where it will get us. We wonder if it will be good for our career. Fixated on the need to have something to show for our labors, we often deny our curiosities. Every time we do this, we are blocked. Our use of age as a block to creative work interlocks with our toxic finished product thinking. We have set an appropriate age on certain activities. College graduation, going to going to med school, writing a first book. This artificial ego requirement asks us to be done when what we truly yearn for is to start something. If I didn't think I'd look like a jerk next to the young guys, I'd let myself sign up for an improv class. If my body looked anything the way it did 20 years ago, I let myself take the jazzercise class at the Y. If I didn't think my family would consider me a stupid old fool, I'd start playing the piano again. I still remember some of my lessons. If these excuses are beginning to sound flimsy to you, good. Ask yourself if you haven't employed a few of them. Then ask yourself if you can acquire the humility to start something despite your ego's reservations. The grace to be a beginner is always the best prayer for an artist. The beginner's humility and openness lead to exploration. Exploration leads to accomplishment. All of it begins at the beginning with the first small and scary step.
This last paragraph is a sum of what we've learned till now. So the best is to just accept that, okay, I mean, I've had problems, I've had, blocks, but I have to move on. I have to explore, and I have to be committed at it. It all begins at the beginning with a small step. It's scary, but just take it. Just take the plunge. Now we'll read this section about filling the form.
What do I mean by filling the form? I mean taking the next small step instead of skipping ahead to a large one for which you may not yet be prepared. To be very specific, in order to sell a screenplay, you must first write one. In order to write one, you must come up with an idea and then commit to it, commit to paper, a page at a time, until you have about 120 pages of script. Filling the form means that you write your daily pages. It means that when obsession strikes, as it will, about how the damn thing is not any good, you tell yourself that this is a question for later and turn back to doing what is the next right thing. And that means you write the pages of the day. If you break a screenplay down into daily increments, that small smattering of writing can get done quickly and promptly before the dirty laundry. And it can carry you through the rest of your day guilt-free and less anxious. Most of the time, the next right thing is something small: washing out your paintbrushes, stopping by the art supply store and getting your clay, checking the local paper for a list of acting classes. As a rule of thumb, it is the best to just admit that there is always one action you can take for your creative daily. This daily action commitment fills the form. All too often, when people look to having a more creative life, they hold an unspoken and often unacknowledged expectation or fear that they will be abandoning life as they know it. I can't be a writer and stay in this marriage. I can't pursue my painting and stay at this dull job. I can't commit to acting and stay in Chicago or Seattle or Atlanta. Blocked creators like to think they are looking at changing their whole life in one fell swoop. This form of grandiosity is very often its own undoing. By setting the jumps too high and making the price tag too great, The recovering artist sets defeat in motion. Who can concentrate on a first drawing class when he is obsessing about having to divorce his wife and leave town? Who can turn toe out in modern jazz form when she is busy reading the ads for a new apartment since she will have to break up with her lover to concentrate on her art? Creative people are dramatic, and we use negative drama to scare ourselves out of creativity with this notion of wholesale and often destructive change. Fantasizing about pursuing our art full time, we fail to pursue it part time or at all. Instead of writing 3 pages a day on a screenplay, we prefer worrying about how we will have to move to Hollywood if the script gets bought, which it can't anyway since we are too busy worrying about selling it to write it.
One simple thing, if you stop one day of morning page, you're coming back to day one. Now, morning pages are very important because they are just taking out the stifled character in you. Whatever negativity you're going through, whatever, it's like just you're just unleashing that. It's like, you when you can't talk about it, at least you can write about it. And that also scribbles. You can't again read it to feel bad. So all the negative drama which is going on in your mind, which is scaring you, you have to bring it out on paper. And that is why it's very important that we do it. So if you're still not doing it, you can even start now. Yes, please.
I'll read the quote on the right by Martin Ritt. Art, question. You just do it.
Yeah. So, in fact, even Paul Cézanne says a very beautiful quote. He says, there's a logic of colors. And it is with this alone and not with the logic of the brain that the painter should confirm. So sometimes there's no need for logic, right? Just do it. We even say in a magical world that magic and logic don't exist together. So if your brain is saying, oh, this is logical, let me do this, just don't do it. Do what your heart says. Listen to your heart, listen to the inner voice, and please keep writing. That morning pages is very, very, very important. Yes, let's continue.
Instead of checking into a life drawing class at the local culture center, we buy art forum and remind ourselves that our stuff is not in style. How can it be? It doesn't exist yet. Instead of clearing out the little room of the kitchen so that we will have a place to work on our pottery, we complain about needing a studio, a complaint that we ourselves cannot take seriously since we do not have any work to argue our case. Indulging ourselves in a frantic fantasy of what our life would look like if we real artists, we fail to see the many small creative changes that we could make at this very moment. This kind of look at the big picture thinking ignores the fact that a creative life is grounded on many, many small steps and very, very few large steps. Rather than take a scary baby step toward our dreams, we rush to the edge of the cliff and then stand there, quaking, saying, I can't leap. I can't. I can't. No one is asking you to leap. That's just drama. And for the purposes of a creative recovery, drama belongs on the page or on the canvas or in the clay or in the acting class or in the act of creativity, however small. Creativity requires activity, and that is not good news that most of us. It makes us responsible, and we tend to hate that. You mean I have to do something in order to feel better? Yes. And most of us hate to do something when we can obsess about something else instead. One of our favorite things to do instead of our art is to contemplate the odds. In a creative career, thinking about the odds is a drink of emotional poison. It robs us of the dignity of art as process and puts us at the mercy of imagined powers out there. Taking this drink quickly leads to a severe and toxic emotional bender. It leads us to ask, what's the use instead of What's next? As a rule of thumb, the odds are that we used to procrastinate about doing what comes next. This is our addiction to anxiety in lieu of action. Once you catch on to this, the jig is up. Watch yourself for a week and notice the way you will pick up an anxious thought, almost like a joint, to blow off or at least delay your next creative action. You've cleared a morning to write or paint, but then you realize that the clothes are dirty. I'll just think about what I want to paint and fine tune it while I fold the clothes, you tell yourself. What you really mean is, instead of painting anything, I will worry about it some more. Somehow, the laundry takes your whole morning. Most block creatives have an active addiction to anxiety. We prefer the low grade pain and occasional heart stopping panic attack to the drudgery of small and simple daily steps in the right direction. Filling the form means that we must work with what we have rather than languish in complaints over what we have not. As a director, I have noticed that the actors who get work are the actors who work, whether they are working or not. I'm thinking specifically about Marge Kotlinski, a fine stage and film actress who has always made herself available to work and not to workshop writers' materials. She worked with the young playwright David Mamet in the St. Nicholas Theater Group in Chicago and now works with the somewhat older and more accomplished David Mamet wherever he is working. Rather than rest on any creative laurels, she engages in a very healthy sort of creative restlessness. When she is not engaged in the run of a show, she often takes a class to keep her hand in, and she always is available for read throughs of new plays. Like all actors, she suffers from the I'll never work again syndrome, but unlike many less committed actors, she never allows herself to make her own work something she does only for others and only when she is paid. Yes, she wants to be paid, and I'm not arguing here that actors should work for free. What I'm saying is that work begets work. Small actions lead us to the larger movements in our creative lives. Many actors allow themselves the dubious luxury of handing their careers over to their agents instead of keeping their art in the custody of their souls. When an agent is in charge of your creative life, you can easily despair that my agent doesn't do enough, instead of asking what you yourself might do to hone your craft. Fill the form. What can you do right now in your life as if currently constituted? Do that thing. Take one small daily action instead of indulging in the big questions. When we allow ourselves to wallow in the big questions, we fail to find the small answers. What we are talking about here is a concept of change grounded in the respect for where we are as well as where we wish to go. We are looking not to grand strokes of change, although they may come, but instead to the act of creatively husbanding all that is the present, this job, this house, this relationship. Recovering creatives commonly undergo bouts of fierce rage and grief over their lost years. When these creative kriyas occur, we desperately want to kick over the traces and get the hell out of life as it is currently constituted. Instead, make changes, small changes, right where you are. Fill this form with creative care until it overflows into a newer, larger form organically. As the poet, as the poet Theodore Riothke phrases it, we learn by going where we have to go. We found that when we fill the form, we do not often need to make large changes. Large changes occur in tiny increments. It is useful to think in terms of a space flight. By altering the launch trajectory very slightly, a great difference can be made over time.
So it's very important to address our emotions. It's very important to address where we are. Otherwise, you're like grieving over a long time of, I'll tell you what's happening with me. For the last 10 days, I've had this wheezing. And when I realize it's because I'm feeling stifled, I'm feeling very claustrophobic because I'm not able to, this is a month of Rakhi, and I'm not able to understand that why am I going through a pattern? So, sometimes in life, you're just unable to get out of an abyss, even though you know you have no way out. So, these beautiful exercises in the artist way will help you overcome your shortcomings, your emotions, which have probably been inside you. Like mine is fresh, I know it's there. Others of you, maybe they are very deep down buried. And when you start writing, you'll be able to understand that you're coming. They're silly questions for some of you. You'll think, what is this happening? So now when Agnes de Mille says, no trumpet sounds when the important decisions of a life are made. Destiny is made known silently. So silently, please start working on your morning pages. And today you have early patternings with the exercise that you all must do. Although we seldom connect the dots, many of our present day losses are connected to our earlier conditioning. Children may be told that they can't do anything or equally damaging. Be told that they should be able to do absolutely anything with ease. Either of these messages blocks the recipient. The following questions are aimed at helping you retrieve and decipher your own conditioning. Most of these may seem not to apply. Write about whatever the trigger for you. So even though these 20 questions may seem meaningless or not so important, but please just do a fill in the blanks at least. For this, the best thing is to take a printout or read the questions in front of you. They will anyways come as attachments. And then just write maybe the fill in the blank. You don't have to write the whole sentence. But this way, you're going to unblock yourself. I need to do this for sure because I've been feeling very claustrophobic for the last week, 10 days, and I just know it's eating me up a lot. So I'm not able to get out of this pit, even though I want to get out of it. So I know this will really help me. So of course, these 20 questions will come to you. But the following affirmations must be done by us because we can select any 5 affirmations and work for them this week. So you can turn the page, please. So these affirmations are beautiful. Let's just read them one by one. I am a talented person. I have a right to be an artist. I am a good person and a good artist. Creativity is a blessing I accept. My creativity blesses others. My creativity is appreciated. I now treat myself and my creativity more gently. I now treat myself and my creativity more generously. I now share my creativity more openly. I now accept hope. I now act affirmatively. I now accept creative recovery. I now allow myself to heal. I now accept God's help unfolding my life. I now believe God loves artists. So, well, there are about 15, 20 of affirmations. You can pick up any 5, whichever you resonate with. And today's task, Mitu, I want you to be my voice, please. Please have the task. Just read them.
Goal search. You may find the following exercise difficult. Allow yourself to do it anyway. If multiple dreams occur to you, do the exercise for each one of them. The simple act of imagining a dream in concrete detail helps us to bring it into reality. Think of your goal search as a preliminary architect's drawing for the life you would wish to have. I am indebted to Barbara Sher and Shakti Gawain for the inspiration for these tasks. The steps. Name your dream. That's right. Write it down. In a perfect world, I would secretly love to be a dash. 2. Name one concrete goal that signals to you its accomplishment. On your emotional compass, this goal signifies true north. Note, two people may want to be an actress. They share that dream. For one, an article in People magazine is the concrete goal. To her, glamour is the emotional center for her dream. Glamour is true north. For the second actress, the concrete goal is a good review in a Broadway play. To her, respect as a creative artist is the emotional center of her dream. Res- uh, Respect is true north. Actress 1 might be happy as a soap star. Actress 2 would feel would need stage work to fulfill her dream. On the surface, both seem to be both seem to desire the same thing. Step number 3. In a perfect world, where would you like to be in 5 years in relation to your dream and true north? Step 4. In the world we inhabit now, what action can you take this year to move you closer? Step 5. What action can you take this month, this week, this day, right now? Step 6. List your dream, for example, to be a famous film director. List its true north: respect and higher consciousness, mass communication. Select a role model: Walt Disney, Ron Howard, Michael Powell. Make an action plan: 5 years, 3 years, 1 year, 1 month, 1 week. Now, choose an action. Reading this book is an action.
So the first we've done is we found a goal. And after, like if we're searching for a goal. And for this, we're having 6 steps. Let's do them one by one, and just finish that task number 1. The next task number 2 is new childhood. Let's talk about that.
What might you have been if you'd had perfect nurturing? Write a page of this fantasy childhood. What were you given? Can you reparent yourself in that direction now? Task number 3. Color schemes. Pick a color and write a quick few sentences describing yourself in the first person. I am silver, high tech and ethereal, the color of dreams and accomplishment, the color of half light, and in between, I feel serene. Or, I am red, I am passion, sunset, anger, blood, wine, and roses, armies, murder, lust, and apples. What is your favorite color? What do you have that is that color? What about an entire room? This is your life and your house. Task number 4. List 5 things you are not allowed to do. Kill your boss, scream in church, go outside naked, make a scene, quit your job. Now do that thing on paper. Write it, draw it, paint it, act it out, collage it. Now put some music on and dance it. Number 5, style search. List 20 things you like to do. Perhaps the same 20 you listed before, perhaps not. Answer these questions for each item. Does it cost money or is it free? Expensive or cheap? Alone or with somebody? Job related? Physical risk? Fast paced or slow? Mind, body, or spiritual? Task number 6. Ideal day. Plan a perfect day in your life as it is now constituted, using the information gleaned from above. Task 7. Ideal day. Plan a perfect day in your life as you wish it were constituted. There are no restrictions. Allow yourself to be and to have whatever your heart desires. Your ideal environment, job, home, circle of friends, intimate relationship, stature in your art form, your wildest dreams. Task 8. Choose one festive aspect from your ideal day. Allow yourself to live it. You may not be able to move to Rome yet, but even in a still grungy apartment, you can enjoy a homemade cappuccino and a croissant.
So it's very nice. I mean, if you can really follow them, you'll really have a lot of blockage will be removed, whether you realize or whether you don't. Today's task is a bit longer. So as I've said before, you can divide it for a couple of days. The idea is to be ready with the task by the next Monday evening at least. So you see how you like to go about them. And the check-in is the most important when you do yourself and check in how many morning pages have you written or how many times did you not want to do it and what was the experience, because there are times when you're trying to shirk away from something and you don't do it. Like I didn't do it twice last week because emotionally I'm on a very roller coaster ride and I just didn't want to write anything, even though I should have, which would have really helped. So I went back to day one after that. And did you go for artist date this week? I didn't. So yeah, that's again because I wasn't ready to face what I was going through. But it's very important to do that because whatever damage you've done to yourself, and whatever sabotage has happened, whatever commitments have happened, you will realize that it's very important to go for this detox. It's like, your date with yourself. So it's very, very, very important. Did you experience any synchronicity this week? Something which happens, which you like, which you planned something and it happened immediately. So it was synchronized. Did you see that? And were there any issues? If there were, you describe them about your recovery. So it's important to do it. Of course, I know many of us aren't doing it, and I think many of us are doing it. So more power to everyone. It's already 6:21, and I do have a hoarse throat. So I think we can just conclude the chapter today. Thank you, Ritesh sir. Thank you, Neetu, for being my voice for this longish chapter, and you would read it so beautifully. And thank you for the explanation as well. Really grateful. Thank you, everyone. Be blessed. Have a wonderful Tuesday, and we shall see each other tomorrow. And thank you, everyone, for this magical morning. Thank you, Ritesh sir. Thank you, Amrita. Thank you, Sanjay. And thank you, Shweta. So God bless you all. And yes, I will fight out my sentiments, hopefully soon. So, and I hope to get fine better. I hope to get normal better. But yes, it's all emotional barrage. There's nothing otherwise. But that's how we human beings are. We don't realize that we manifest sickness also by not being, okay, hard thought. Thank you for reminding. Thank you, Sana. So Sanjay, Ritesh sir, let's have the hard thought before we conclude. So anybody, yes, Sakshi, you want to read it? Lovely. Yes, please read it, Sakshi.
Good morning, Darshana.
Good morning.
I am willing to release my fears. If you are overnight, you can have all the willpower and discipline in the world and go on all sorts of diets. You can be really strong, and for months you may not eat one mouthful of food that you shouldn't eat. Unfortunately, the moment you drop your willpower and discipline, the weight comes back again. It is because you have not dealt with the real issue. You have only worked on the outer effect. The real issue with the weight is usually fear, which creates fat for protection. You can fight fat all your life and never get to the real issue. You could probably die believing you are not good enough because you could not lose the weight. However, you need to feel safe, could be fulfilled in a more positive way. Then the weight could lead by itself. Say, I am willing to release the need for my weight problem. I am willing to release the fear. I am willing to release the need for this protection. I am safe. Thank you.
Thanks. So we spoke about this yesterday also, that weight is not an issue. The issue is the roots, and roots are very, very important for all of us to realize. And we don't need protection, but we crave for it. So people who are addicted are usually running from themselves, and they use some sort of addiction to fill the space inside. So there's some emptiness which makes us do what we do, right? So that's how the weight comes up, or that's how something else comes up. So please understand that we are not being able to deal with the real issue. And that's why sometimes the weight just goes up at a spurt and sometimes it doesn't. So please understand it. And let's just affirm this today. Thank you, everyone. Thank you yet again, everyone. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's see each other tomorrow at 5. Lots of love, light, and abundance. Take care. Thanks.